There's so much interest that they're banging down my door to get me to come out there.
Tonight, Northern Manitoba communities want to better protect their members from violence and racism, documented in a scathing, newly released report.
The money at the end of the day is about making sure that every young person, including vulnerable Indigenous people, feel like they're part of this community.
A first direct response from the federal government in an effort to keep young people safe in Thunder Bay.
We really have to develop services that help to support them in every aspect of their life.
And keeping Indigenous languages strong once again shows how vital that is to student success.
Good evening, welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward.
And I'm Melissa Ridgen.
The fallout continues from a bombshell report that showed decades of racism and sexual abuse by Manitoba hydro workers working on projects near Northern First Nation communities.
Now, Fox Lake Cree Nation and Manitoba Hydro itself have tapped Winnipeg's Bear Clan Patrol for help. I caught up with Bear Clan's James Favel to explain. The victimized communities and the employer of the perpetrators seem to be on the same side, that atrocities outlined in the Clean Environment Commission report never happen again.
It's very flattering, but again, it's not that Bear Clan can fix these things. It's the community that has to fix it, but we have a model that really helps them to get that momentum.
And you haven't been up there yet, so this might be speculation, but based on the people you've talked to, does it seem like there's a big interest from the community to start a patrol like this?
There's so much interest that they're banging down my door to get me to come out there.
James Favel will head to Fox Lake on September 17th.
Program is, with the policy procedures, governance documents, all those bylaws, all those kinds of things, it takes care of itself. Mm-hmm. You just need the community to buy into it and act on it. And so I'm going to go up there and talk to them about it, show them, tell them what I know, how, again, best practices, what works best and things like that, and then it's going to be left for them to do.
The Bear Clan Patrol in Winnipeg was resurrected after 15-year-old Tina Fontaine's body was pulled from the Red River in 2014. The teen had been missing for weeks before being found murdered. They patrol crime hotspots in the city as a deterrent and have won numerous awards and citations for their dedication and effectiveness.
One of the real takeaways about Bear Clan Patrol is that we don't fix, that kind of problem. It seems that we've been able to empower the community to fix it for themselves. So by getting involved, by demonstrating that there is something else going on out there, it gives people something to come together on. It's positive, proactive kind of social interaction, and so it's going to empower the community, I hope, to take care of its own need.
He's pleased Manitoba Hydro has an interest, finally, in the safety of those who live near their worker camps. Fox Lake leadership didn't return calls for comment on the establishment of a Bear Clan in the community. Melissa Ridgen, APTN National News, Winnipeg. A big funding announcement today to help Indigenous students in Thunder Bay. As Willow Fiddler reports, it's in response to the 7 Youth Inquest recommendations.
$5.6 million from the National Crime Prevention Strategy for the city of Thunder Bay. The money is for a 5-year project to help support students attending high school in the city.
The money at the end of the day is about making sure that every young person, including vulnerable Indigenous people, feel like they're part of this community, feel like they have places to go when they're struggling, feel like they have alternatives to unhealthy community that exists in pockets of our communities that prey on young people who are feeling vulnerable.
The announcement comes 2 years after 145 recommendations were delivered to several stakeholders like the City of Thunder Bay and the federal government on how to keep students here safe. An inquest in 2015 examined the deaths of 7 First Nation students. All 7 had left their communities and families to attend high school in the city. The city's crime prevention coordinator says this money will help incoming youth and those already here.
We will be able to implement programs that have been developed and designed to address the needs of youth coming to Thunder Bay from northern communities, and also youth who are currently living in Thunder Bay who may find themselves at risk.
Starting this fall, more than a dozen community partners like the police and Fort William First Nation will begin working with youth aged 12 to 24 at 3 neighborhood locations and in 2 schools. Brad Battiston is the principal at Matawa Learning Center, where students from 5 First Nations attend.
It's significant for us because it's about peace of mind, and it's about having students, the more connected they feel, the more comfortable they feel, the more likely they are to succeed and stay in school and in Thunder Bay.
81 inquest recommendations were made to the federal government. This is their first direct response to one of them, but Minister Haidu said many others are also being addressed.
But things like making sure that we increase funding to education on reserve, those things are already underway. The improvements to living conditions and infrastructure needs in First Nations, some of those things came up as well in the inquest recommendations. But the work that we're doing, investing billions of dollars, ensuring that there's equity in First Nations and that First Nations communities can move forward in skills training, for example, in my portfolio, all fit within the recommendations of the inquest.
Willow Fiddler, APTN National News, Thunder Bay.
Earlier this month, a 60-year-old tourist from Germany was shot in the head while driving in Alberta. Now, a 16-year-old boy from the Stoney Nakoda First Nation has been arrested for the shooting. The incident happened on Highway 1A across from the reserve near Calgary. RCMP have charged the youth with 14 offenses, including attempted murder. Investigators seized the vehicle and a firearm believed to have been involved in the shooting. The tourist survived and has since traveled home to Germany. He is unable to talk or move his right side due to his injuries.
In addition, doctors in Germany have successfully removed the bullet from the victim, and that bullet will be sent here to Canada, where it will undergo forensic testing to compare it to the firearm which has been recovered.
The Chiefs of Ontario is being forced to restructure. That's due in part to a growing deficit at the political organization that advocates for 133 First Nations. But that's not its only problem, according to an online report done by APTN News. Kenneth Jackson joins us from Ottawa with more. Kenneth, thanks for being with us. You and APTN Investigates producer Paul Barnsley worked on this story. What did you learn?
Well, we learned that the Chiefs of Ontario has a deficit of about $1.3 million. It's growing by about tens of thousands of dollars every month, nearly 58,000. We know that because Indigenous Services did a financial review on their books in the last couple of fiscal years, and they found these issues. We also know that they're being restructured. They had a restructuring report that was done over the summer, and a lot of internal turmoil, a lot of battling going on. It's an organization that's grappling with that deficit and fighting amongst certain chiefs and whatnot.
So you're kind of laying it out there, Kenneth, but how did Chiefs of Ontario get in this position?
Well, the Indigenous Services Financial Review found that the Board of Directors, and the Board of Directors is key because from what we can understand, that's the boss of Chiefs of Ontario, and it's made up of 4 Grand Chiefs, basically the 4 Grand Chiefs of Ontario, and 2 of them apparently didn't meet regularly at board meetings, and according to the former Regional Chief Isidore Day, they met once in 3 years, and by not meeting, then it was hard for them to get things done because they're the ones who are supposed to sign off on everything, and that includes the former Chief Operating Officer, Nathan Wright. And so what happened is that Nathan Wright was in charge, and he was supposed to have his bosses at the Board of Directors, but they didn't meet, so he kind of was allowed to do what he wanted to do according to the documents. And what happened was the deficit is largely due to positions that have no funding. And so those jobs didn't go away. They kept getting paid, and that ran deficit up. And from what we can understand, there's, according to Isidore Day, it's political. The reason why the board didn't meet is because of political differences. And, if you look at the restructuring report, this is a long-standing issue that dates back since almost the very beginning. They've always wanted to restructure. They've always had these political interferences, which is a word that's used in the document, those sort of issues.
So, Kenneth, what is being done to fix the current situation?
Well, the new regional chief, Roseanne Archibald, I spoke to her, and she gave us an interview, and she said that she's going to fix it. She said, "I'm known as a fixer." That's a quote. "I am a fixer." And she's vowing to balance the books by next March, and by June she's going to have a plan in place to restructure, not have another report that just collects dust, but to actually fix the problems. And that's her goal, and she's vowed it. That was her election platform, is to fix it. And that's what she said. That's what she says to us. That's going to happen.
Kenneth, it was quite the piece. Look forward to seeing what unfolds. Appreciate you joining us here today.
Right on. Thank you.
Sexual exploitation continues to be a major problem in Winnipeg, despite efforts to change that.
After the break, one of our reporters goes on a ride-along with Winnipeg police and speaks to those working the streets. But first, here's a look at Wednesday's weather forecast. To the east coast, 23 and sunny in Charlottetown, 24 and some cloud in St. John's. Kuujjuaq is 10 with some cloud. Happy Valley Goose Bay 16 in cloud. Cloud through Quebec, 12 in Chibougamau, 30 in Montreal. Sarnia 30, London rain and 30, Windsor rain and 30 as well, and same with Toronto. Big Trout Lake is going to be rainy and 13, Kapuskasing 12 in rain, as well as Timmins 12 in rain. 13 in partial sun in Churchill, 17 in God's Lake and Norway House with some rain showers. 21 in sunshine in Winnipeg, 29 in sun in Brandon. 22 partly sunny in Saskatoon, 23 and mostly sunshine in Regina. Uranium City, 16, Stony Rapids, 17, La Ronge, 18 with some sun. Welcome back. Tina Fontaine's death thrust child exploitation into the spotlight in Canada. So what has changed in the years after the Indigenous teen was found? As APTN Investigates reporter Martha Troyan finds out, not much for the better. As we told you last week, she joined Winnipeg Police Service for an exclusive ride-along with their counter-exploitation and missing persons unit. Here's the story in case you missed it.
Tina Fontaine was pulled out of Winnipeg's Red River 4 years ago. She was 15. Her death shocked the country, triggering calls for widespread change. But police and advocates say the exploitation of Indigenous women and girls has only increased. For Donna Thang, a Winnipeg sex trade worker, that's no surprise.
I have my daughter that's 15 years old, you know, and she's starting to explore and whatever else. And, like, she's a very young, beautiful girl, too, just like how Tina was. And she wants, like, in going on the streets and whatever, even walking the streets and whatever else. Guys think, like, you know, things like that they're into, like, doing sex trades and whatever else, things like that. And you never know what can happen to these girls nowadays. Yeah. It's, like, very scary. I'm so scared of my daughter.
Sergeant Rick McDougall is with the Winnipeg Police Service's Counter-Exploitation and Missing Persons Unit. Women and girls remain at high risk despite the hard work his unit is doing on the ground.
Surprising and disappointing that after Tina Fontaine and the attention that got, that we would have expected and certainly hoped that it would have gone down, that the Indigenous women and girls in the entire country would have been better protected and would have been kept safe, and unfortunately that's not what we're seeing.
Some advocates like Bear Clan's James Fable say solutions are possible.
Poverty alleviation has to be the main course of action. For all of the societal ills that we're suffering through right now, poverty, the blinding poverty, the rates of poverty, that's the main proponent of all of these things. You have to eliminate that. I mean, if people aren't desperate for money, they're not going to put themselves in these vulnerable positions.
Thang is in the sex trade because it's easy money. She's also aware how dangerous the city can be.
He turned out to be a creep or whatever. He was, like, talking all crazy and whatever else, saying that he likes killing people and whatever else, you know. So, like, he locked me inside his car or whatever. Like, I couldn't get out, so I was, like, kicking the door or whatever to the point where I got out, and then I just fell right out or whatever, and the car was driving still, and then he stopped and was chasing me and everything, and I had to run to the nearest house or whatever, and I was banging on the door and stuff like that, because he said he wanted to kill me and rape me and everything, you know. So I was really scared and stuff like that.
McDougall points out that several agencies in the city now work together after Fontaine's death. Martha Troyan, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
There's a lot more to this story about the exploitation of Indigenous women and girls. Our journalist on the story, Martha Troyan, joined me earlier. Martha, thanks for joining us. Donna Thang is just one person you spoke with during your investigation for this story. What else did you hear from Indigenous women about their struggle to survive in Winnipeg?
Well, we talked to a lot of other sex trade workers and survivors of sexual exploitation. And so many of them talk about, some of these girls are entrenched on the streets for various reasons. Some of them is because they're homeless. They need money. It's quick money as well for them to sell themselves on the streets. They also they need drugs. So this is a pattern that we noticed when we were out there, which was that a lot of Indigenous women and girls unfortunately have intense drug addictions.
You reported exploitation has only gotten worse since the death of the Indigenous youth, Tina Fontaine, whose body was pulled from the Red River in 2014. Tell us what you discovered during your research that led you to that conclusion.
Well, although we don't have any hard data from the officials, because I did ask them for that, I wanted kind of like the stats of these young Indigenous women and girls. Who are they? What age? And so forth. So there's no data available, but we did talk with the Winnipeg Police unit, and we also interviewed, like I said, several other women on the streets and advocates. And they all said that unfortunately they are not seeing the exploitation go down. This is something that they wished it would have happened after Tina Fontaine's death, but that's not what they're seeing on the streets.
And based on your interviews with survivors of sexual exploitation and with advocates, what needs to happen here in Winnipeg? What needs to change?
Well, some of them are saying that there needs to be actually like a 24-hour shelter for older women who are on the streets. Mm-hmm. So we have youth shelters, for instance, in the Winnipeg, in the city of Winnipeg, for young girls, but there's nothing for these older women to go to. So if they feel unsafe or they're at high risk for victimization, there's nowhere for them to go, which basically it puts them in a further vulnerable position.
City of this size, you'd think that'd be a pretty easy fix, a center like that.
Right, and they also said that that even though some of the advocates were saying that the Winnipeg police are doing a good job, and there were a bunch of people that said to us that there needs to be more training on their part, so that they can basically understand where these women are coming from, their histories, the impacts of colonization.
Well, Martha, it was an eye-opening series. More can be found on our website, aptnnews.ca, and appreciate you coming in to speak with us about it.
Thanks, Dennis.
An Indigenous post-secondary institution is now offering programs with First Nations language as an option. That story and more coming up after the break.
In northern Alberta, we have 15 in rain and high level, 16 in rain in Fort McMurray. Edmonton's in at 19 with some rain, 20 and rain in Calgary, 27 and sunny in Medicine Hat, 19 in rain in Vancouver, 18 and rain in Victoria. Dease Lake 12, Fort St. John warm and sunny, 26, Prince George 16, Dawson City rain and 14 as well in Whitehorse, and 11 in rain in Watson Lake. Norman Wells cloudy and 11, Fort Simpson 13 in rain, Yellowknife's in it, mix of sun and cloud and 15. Tuktoyaktuk 11, Inuvik 12, Fort McPherson 14, 7 and some sun in Cambridge Bay, Arviat's in at 10 with some sun and cloud. Resolute 0 and rain. Arctic Bay, some sunshine and 5. Iqaluit 10 with a mix of sun and cloud. Welcome back. Recognized for alternative and culturally adapted educational services, Kiuna is the only Indigenous post-secondary institution in Quebec. This year, they're offering new programs with a First Nations language option. Danielle Rochette reports.
Students are already at work at Kiuna College. It's located in the Abenaki community of Odanak. Since opening in 2011, 92 students have graduated. 90% of them are now at university, some even at master level. According to Associate Director Prudence Anis, they needed the language component to their programs.
Both the need to provide this kind of training and the need expressed by the students motivated us to develop that program. And it took about 2 years to develop it.
20-year-old Darren Germain is from the Innu community of Mastoyach. He's in his third year of social sciences and knows there's a need for language education.
Moi, je trouve que c'est vraiment bien parce que ça va préparer ces étudiants-là à devenir, je veux dire, ils vont être prêts à devenir enseignants après ça et transmettre la langue. Et il y a une problématique dans les écoles primaires et secondaires dans nos communautés, c'est que les enseignants, ils parlent pas nos langues.
Nika Notawa from the Atikamekw community of Manawan just started at Kiuna a few days ago. She's one of the 12 students who enroll in the new program and is excited about speaking her language.
Je trouve ça important parce que c'est ça qui fait ton identité, je trouve.
And she doesn't just plan to practice. Ottawa wants to put her language education to use.
C'est soit devenir linguiste ou aller dans la traduction. Il y a beaucoup de choses qui m'intéressent dans le fond, là, côté langue, parce que j'ai toujours aimé apprendre de nouvelles langues.
Innu poète Joséphine Bacon will be teaching Atikamekw at Kiuna this year.
J'adore ça. Je trouve que je travaille dans un milieu qui me ressemble. Parce que tu entends parler Atikamekw, tu entends parler Innu, puis tu les regardes, puis je regarde les jeunes, puis ils sont vraiment contents qu'il y ait des cours de langue. Il y en a un qui me disait ça devrait être, il dit comme le français, ça doit être un cours obligatoire.
But for Anis, the biggest challenge lays in providing all the adequate services to the students to succeed.
We really have to develop services that help to support them in every aspect of their life.
This year, 3 First Nations languages will be offered: Abenaki, Innu, and Atikamekw. But there are plans for more in the future. Daniel Rochette, APTN National News, Odanak, Quebec.
With more than 630 First Nations, 2 Métis, and 4 Inuit territories spread over thousands of kilometers, APTN News is bringing everyone just a little closer. We've partnered with Google to present Google Bulletin. It's your gateway to write about anything that's happening in your community. Just contact us and we'll send you a unique code. The rest is up to you. Post pictures, write a story, or report about anything you want. Google Bulletin puts the news in your hands, and all you need is a smartphone. Here's how to get your unique code. Email your name and community to bulletin@aptn.ca. Go to our website, aptnnews.ca/bulletin.
I hope lots of people are using that.
I'm going to try and use it myself.
What a great way to tell stories from no matter where you are. That's all the news we have for you this Tuesday, August 28th. I'm Melissa Ridgen.
And I'm Dennis Ward. Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.